Hey everybody, this is Matthew Krause, and you are listening to the podcast Working Drummer. Today my guest is Tucker Wilson. Tucker is one of those rare musicians that was born and raised in Nashville, Tennessee. He even has relatives that are in the music business and are Grand Ole Opry legends, like the Whites and Ricky Skaggs. Tucker spent much of his youth hanging out backstage at the Grand Ole Opry. But in spite of these connections, he's well on his way to make a name for himself as a strong and professional drummer. As always, you can go to workingdrummer.net. You can find us on Twitter at working_drummer. You can find us on Instagram. We're also on Facebook, where you can leave a message. You can also subscribe to us on iTunes, where you can have a new episode sent to your smart device every Wednesday. Quick reminder, we are happy to announce that we're involved with the Nashville Drummers Jam 7, which is December 14th at the Exit Inn. It's a tribute to Alex Van Halen. Also, Tucker Wilson is one of the drummers that is involved in the Nashville Drummers Jam. So without further ado, here is Tucker Wilson. You're one of the few people that can say that they're a native of Nashville. Is that true?
Absolutely. Yeah. Born at Baptist Hospital, which is now, St. Thomas Midtown, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, born and raised.
Because it's the type of town where no one really is from here. They all there's a lot of people that come here and continue to come here more recently to get involved in music. So a lot of times musicians, I say, hey, where are you from? Just automatically, because they all were seeking something better. But I have met musicians that, grew up here. Yeah. And I always wonder what that's like. I mean, is it... Well, because my sons are growing up here and right. They're learning music and stuff like that. But how does that shape your view of music? How does that shape your view of the business?
This might be a lengthy answer. I'm surrounded by music on both sides of my family. So let's see, where do I start? My dad's dad, he actually, he just passed away this February, but he was a session player in the 50s, 60s, 70s, on through into the 80s. Mm-hmm. And he worked in the Opry staff band for 53 years.
Wow.
So he's played on, countless hits and band lead, he'll band lead TV shows. He did syndicated television too, a lot of radio, but mainly sessions and Opry. He did some road work. He was in like Jimmy Dickens' band in the 50s. Mm-hmm. He was in Ray Price's band in the 50s. Mm-hmm. The golden age of basically country music, what we do. But right. He was my hero, and kind of I wanted to shape, he's my namesake too.
Yeah.
I'm the last person with his last name, so.
Oh, okay.
Well, now my son, but.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to do what he did. Mm-hmm. He was a guitar player.
Okay.
Oh, I didn't specify that, but he kind of, I was like the only person that really took a lot of interest in our family of what he did, and I would ask him a million questions, and so.
From a very young age?
Very young. Well, I was like 3 days old, and they brought me to the Opry. And when they used to put it on TV all the time,
yeah,
and I was on TV, like, hey, this is, baby Tucker Wilson, and my mom's side. This is where it gets extensive. My mom's side, she is one of 4 sisters, and 2 of her sisters, and their dad, his name is Buck White. They're the Whites on the Opry.
Oh yeah,
that. Country and bluegrass group. So,
sure.
And then my mom's oldest sister, Sharon, she's married to Ricky Skaggs. So Ricky is my uncle, and he's been my uncle since way before I was born. So that I've grown up going to the Grand Ole Opry. I've been there probably 10,000 times. Just wow. that was just the norm to me. So
yeah,
I like. Seriously, this is hilarious, but like Rodney Emerson, he was like one of the first drummers I ever saw play drums. Because he was playing with the Whites when I was like 2 years old. He's Ronnie Millsap's guy now, but he, I remember like sitting up on the drum riser watching him, sound check before they played, and it was such a different time back then. Anybody could go on the stage, walk behind the drums, and so I grew up with both of my grandpas at the Opry at the same time.
Jeez.
Then, all of my family's at the Opry all the time. So
Yeah.
So to answer your question,
Yeah.
Growing up in Nashville, it had everything to do with why I play music, because it's it's all I knew.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I didn't know that, this guy that gave me a pair of drumsticks, his name's Buddy Harmon. Oh, it took me 10 years to realize that, he's like the first, other than like a guy named Ferris Corsi, he's the first Nashville session guy ever. There's like two guys that pioneered drums in Nashville, and he was one of them. And he gave me a pair of drumsticks.
Wow.
He was a staff drummer at the Opry for a long time. So
Okay.
it's just crazy, rubbing shoulders with guys I didn't even know. I was 3 years old, and I didn't know who they were, but he played drums, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever. So
Yeah. Well, and that fascinates me because personally, because I moved here 16 years ago and did not know country music at all. It was the place to go to. It's one of the few places to go, I should say, to try and make a living as a musician.
Yep.
So I think that my experience is very common with a lot of people that are just looking to play music and good music. Not necessarily country music, but just good music and good situations and professional situations. So we're exposed to stuff that we didn't know before, and so we go through this whole learning process and the history and discover new things and are just fascinated. The way we discovered rock, the way we discovered jazz, the way we discovered all these things, the good and the bad and all those things. But
Absolutely.
You're I mean, it's just second nature,
Yeah,
to know these people, but then to put the pieces together.
It's funny. I feel like I'm in the family business. Like I haven't really. I kind of made it a point early on. I was like, I don't want to use my family to get to work. I don't want to say well, my family is this and this and this. No one cares.
Yeah,
it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
They're just the norm to me. They're my singing aunts and grandpas and musical uncles and.
So did you pick up sticks early, or were you playing other instruments?
I've been playing drums since I was about my son's age now, so a year and a half old.
Wow.
I got my first drum set. So my birthday's in January. I got it the Christmas before my third birthday, so I was 2.
Okay.
I was 2 in the next month I turned 3. So I was basically like almost 3 years old. I got my first drum set.
Jeez.
And I actually, before that, made my own drum set. I had a toy. My parents still have it. I don't know how I thought of this, but it was a toy, and it had, like it's a combined 2 toys. It was this thing, the square in a square hole, circle in a round hole.
Yeah.
I turned it over, and it had a little lip on it, like a rim
of
a drum. So I would turn it over, and I would angle it on the top. And my mom would, she got new shoes. She'd pull the piece of plastic that keeps the shoe from bending or whatever. She'd give those to me. I'd make them into drumsticks. And I had this other toy that had this little bell on it, and that was my cymbal. And so I would play. I would watch TV. I'd watch if the Opry's on TV or music videos. I'd play to that.
Yeah.
And then they were like, "Well, okay, I think he likes drums." So I'm like, my grandpa, I think he went and asked one of his buddies, hey, what's the smallest drum set we can find? And they found a little, it was like a CB 700, but the miniature version of that.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
And I wore it out.
Wow.
Yeah, it was hilarious.
Did you take lessons from anybody?
I took formal lessons for 5 or 6 years, but it was very, very off and on. From a guy who's still a drummer in town named Dan Ogren. He's actually a Metro, I think he's a lieutenant in the Nashville, Metro Police.
Oh, wow.
Fine drummer, and had the coolest setup in his garage. He had 2 monster kits. One was an entire kit of Rototoms.
What?
An entire kit of Rototoms. It was amazing. It blew me away. And then he had his old, 73 Blue Sparkle Ludwig kit, but it was like a 9-piece drum set. Jeez. I was in heaven. Yeah. And so, but he made sure to start me on a pad. He taught me, he was teaching me how to read before I ever went to reading school, and I hated it.
I was going to ask you about that,
I hated that.
Because when we geek out, for me to sit down and play a pattern over and over is fine. I enjoy it. For me to work on paradiddles or something like that, I'm like, why wouldn't anyone want to do this?
Well, no, what's funny is I ended up in high school being very, very serious about core drumming, like DCI. Okay. I wanted to be in the Phantom Regiment. I wanted to do that, so I took that very seriously for 3 or 4 years, and now that's how I warm up. I can play traditional grip, okay. But for the longest time I hated it. I was like, I just want to. Can I just go tear up that 9-piece drum set, man? Put on a tune that I know, some Deep Purple or something, and let me just rip it up. So
how did your love with rock come into play within this family that was rooted heavily into country music in Nashville and the Opry?
I would have to say it was just kind of a natural thing. My uncle Ricky and his wife Sharon, my aunt Sharon, they had a son who's only 9 months older than me. And so he and I were like brothers. His name's Luke. And he got really, really into rock music too. And so my mom and dad, I grew up going to church and stuff, but they were never really, they weren't careful about. I mean, they were careful about, I couldn't watch MTV and stuff like that, but they would let me listen to pretty much any kind of music.
Okay.
If I was interested in it, they were like, okay, go listen. So I kind of discovered through my mom and dad, because they have great musical taste, and I grew up on 90s country, 80s country, but I also grew up on 60s, 70s, 80s rock too. So. Right. Just really, it was a full-on, just an onslaught of just whatever I could listen to, get my hands on, I'd listen to it. So yeah, I think I would, I'd spit out the bones, and I really honed in on one area. Yeah.
So I know that sometimes there's families, you have church families that when I was growing up, there was all this fear of rock and roll influencing kids to do things like, commit suicide and worship Satan and things like that. And so my church, when I was a kid, was so afraid of the things that I was listening to, and what does Houses of the Holy really mean?
Is that a pentagram?
Right. Is that
on the front of that record?
Right.
What does it mean, Starman? Is it? Right. He's naked. Why is he naked on the front?
Exactly. So
we're talking about dragons, man. All right.
Which made me want to listen to it even more. Did you get involved with Christian music at some point, or do you still do
I absolutely that? Did. Absolutely did. Okay. That's actually out of high school. I didn't go to college. I never stepped foot in a classroom.
You're not university material?
Not university material. Yeah, my parents were like, you can go to college and we'll help you through, or somehow, or you can go and be a musician and we'll also help you through somehow.
Yeah.
They believed in me, and they saw, I guess, my just willpower to go and just do it. I knew I was the young guy. I couldn't go and play in bars yet. And so honestly, the best thing that I could have done was I went and played Christian music, because they don't play bars. They play churches.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how old you are. So that's not why I did it, but it ended up working out in my favor.
Sure.
So right out of high school, I kind of got bummed out. I was like, man, I just want to go do sessions. I want to be a session guy. It was. I still feel that way right now, but some days. But I was like, I just want to go do sessions. But I was like, man, nobody's gonna take me seriously, and I'm never gonna get hired at this age to go play with like Carrie Underwood, or I really wanted to be for a little while. I wanted to be Garrett Goodwin, who plays with Carrie.
Okay.
I was like, I want to do that. He's like a rock drummer, plays country, and then I really got into Chris McHugh, and then Chris McHugh started out playing Christian music, and so did Garrett Goodwin.
Yeah, right.
And a couple months later, my mom, she was working for this Christian author and setting up events, and she met this guy who was in a Christian band. His name is Justin Rivers, and he fantastic country artist, and but he was in a band called Austin's Bridge.
Okay.
And he was like, yeah, I'm in a band, and this is to my mom. They were in a different city at an event, and she was telling him, I guess, that I played drums, and he gave my mom his number to give to me so I could call him. He's like, yeah, we'll audition him.
Okay.
I was like, all right, Mom, thanks.
And what was your experience playing with bands up to that point?
I had been in a couple of rock bands, and in high school, I had never played for an artist. I'd never played. I was 18, almost 19, and had never played for an artist before.
But had you played for an audience with the rock?
Oh yeah, plenty of times. I just, I was in a pretty hot and heavy, pretty serious, like blues cover band for a long time in high school. Mm-hmm. So I Friday nights, if I wasn't in the marching band and going to a football game, I'd go to a club or a blues jam or something. We probably did 100 or hundreds of shows with this blues band.
Wow.
And so I wasn't afraid, or I was right at home.
Right.
But I'd never played with an artist before, being in their band and playing with tracks, and it was new to me. So I auditioned, and they were like, "Yeah, man, that was great. Let's do it. You want to go?" I was like, "Okay." They were like, "We're gonna pay you, like $75 a show." I was like, "Done."
Yeah.
I was like, "Man, I can do so much stuff with $75 a show. I'm 18, 19 years old. This is great."
Yeah.
So I did that for
3 shows a year.
You're right. They actually worked me pretty good.
Yeah.
They worked me pretty good for like 9 or 10 months for a while. They were in a van and playing churches and events and conferences, and it's a good way to cut your teeth.
Yeah.
So
you guys were running tracks. Did you have like...
Funny. It's funny, actually. They were running tracks on an iPod.
Yes, I've done that.
iPod, like was it an iPod Mini or something like that? It's like a little blue or green iPod Mini, and it was the worst thing ever. I mean, that's all they could do right at that time.
Right.
We eventually moved on to Ableton,
and
I started getting versed in that a little bit, but for a while it was an iPod.
Yeah,
and it was tough.
You hit start, and there'd be that little delay, and
oh yeah,
you didn't know if it was
like, hey,
would you have to stop it when the song is done because it would go to the next song?
Oh yeah. It's like, and I was like, all right, we're gonna play this next song for you, and it's called this.
Pause.
1, 2, 3. It was like.
I know.
The crowd was probably like, no, these guys have really got it together. So
there is an art to that when bringing the song in, right when maybe the lead singer has a spiel that he uses every night.
I'm dealing with that right now.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, with a full redundant track rig. And, I mean, I still have to, it's a little different every night. I have to... And all right, I'll go now.
Yeah.
And make sure you have to hope for.
So was this experience invaluable? I mean, did you?
Oh yeah.
Did you learn a lot?
Yeah, I feel like even playing with this, they were a Christian country band too. So if you can, it's a subsidiary of a subsidiary, you know, kind of genre-wise. It's kind of like, I wonder how many people are going to be at the show tonight. Like there was a show, this is the funniest thing ever. There was a show we played in Kentucky, and there were signs, I guess, in this little town showing where the show was.
Yeah.
And somebody had taken all the signs down and said show canceled.
What?
Or they just took the signs down or something. It was really bad. The guys I was playing with, they were really, really mad. There were 3 people there, and we played.
You guys outnumbered the audience.
We did. We outnumbered the audience, and we played. And those 3 people really loved it, I guess. We really we played with the lights on, and oh yeah, it was great. It was like, it was not set up for what we were doing. And then that night, I guess the in the place, there was a restaurant in the same building, and they served us like frog legs. Like the nights like that, I'll never forget. I can remember every aspect of that show just because it was so bad.
Yeah, man, I remember doing a gig when OJ was being chased on TV.
1994.
And we were trying to play, and they were like, hey, keep it down. Like, everyone was watching TV. And like, no, we're supposed to be playing right now. And so we'd start, and people would turn around and yell at us to stop playing because everyone was just glued to the TV. And so I was like, screw it, I'm getting drunk.
Hey, the glove didn't fit, though.
What's that?
The glove didn't fit.
The glove smelled what? So how long did that last?
Let's see.
Not the gig. I mean, not that night, but the whole tour.
Let's see.
That night lasted forever.
I played with them from 2009 to probably 2000. Beginning of 2009, probably like the spring to the end of the next year.
Okay.
So near the end of 2010, they ended up doing a record with Jada Marcus from Rascal Flatts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm not talking bad about these guys, but they were on the worst record label in the entire world. They were on a Southern gospel record label, and
it's got to be tough.
It's right. The worst. We'd get booked with these quartets and stuff, these Southern gospel quartets, and there's plenty of people that love them, but I don't mind saying that I don't like that stuff. That is
sure.
There's a lot of false things going on, and that's just my opinion about that. But we'd get booked on these like quartet, like these sings. That's what they'd call them. We're gonna do a quartet singing, and it'd be like these 4 quartets with their instant replay machines. You know, their 360 machines, and then us with. You guys have a drummer?
Yeah.
Wait, y'all have a bass player?
Yeah.
It was like, yeah. It was just the worst. The guys in the band hated it.
Was it tough? I mean, were there volume issues?
Sometimes they would. I think there was a contest to see how many shields they could put in front of the drums. I think I might hold some sort of world record for that.
And did you have to compensate for, did your playing style, because I know that sometimes is a tough thing. It's when you're playing different types of gigs. We talk to a lot of players that are talking about, hitting the drums, drawing the sound out, and, putting on a show, whether it's, we just talked to Sean Fuller or Rich Redmond, and they're talking about moving and creating this show, both visually and audibly, for the person in the audience.
I'm not a one-upper by any means, but I can one-up them.
Okay.
As far as putting on a show.
Okay.
If anybody is listening and they know me, they know that I'm not like the most showy drummer. I try to get the job done, and I love to play drums.
Yeah. I
kind of try and aim for the bottom kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm playing for the song, but I'm also, I'm there because I love to do it. But
yeah.
But there's one instance when I had to put on the biggest show of my entire life, and actually it was that same band, Austin's Bridge.
Yeah.
They got picked up to tour with this like Southern gospel superstar named Guy Penrod.
Okay.
He's He's like salt and pepper Jesus. He looks like Jesus with gray hair.
Okay.
And he's got one of the biggest voices I've ever heard. And he was in the Gaithers.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. He looks like, kind of dresses like Chuck Norris a little bit, like, but he looks, he's like 6'6", dresses like a cowboy, looks like Jesus. It's just a full onslaught visually, but he wanted to take out Austin's Bridge and use the band, and I was still in the band. And he's like, what we want to do is I'll do 3, y'all do 3. We'll kind of mix up our sets. I was like, okay, I can do that.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm not used to playing with a drummer. Mm-hmm. Or if we have a drummer, he's not mic'd. He's just playing to the tracks, and he's faking it. Mm-hmm. He said, but since you have mics on and you're actually going to be playing the Austin's Bridge tunes, I need you to mime the drums.
Because
I don't want he doesn't want me to play.
His songs are tracks. Is that what you're saying?
His music was... So if you looked on my left, at this point with Austin's Bridge, we had an Ableton rig.
Yeah.
So on my left, I had a 13-inch MacBook Pro with, Ableton 6 or 7. It's been a while. And then on the right of that computer, I had a 17-inch MacBook Pro with iTunes opened up.
Okay.
And so what we do, it was Guy's personal computer.
Yeah.
And he would make the set list and put the songs in order on his own computer and hand me the computer and say, all right, I had 2 interfaces, I had 2 separate computers. It was the craziest thing I've ever done. And he would give me hand signals when to start the songs. And I would start, and then I would just kind of, start, I learned the songs. I knew the songs, but it's Shannon Forrest on the tracks. It was great. Oh, great tracks.
Yeah, sure.
Because he had a solo record out. That's the tunes we were playing, but I wasn't actually playing the drums.
But how would would the people notice that you're not really hitting the crash cymbals, or?
You ever seen that video of Alan Jackson playing with his drummer has no drumsticks?
No, I don't.
They told Alan that his band couldn't play live, so Alan told his drummer, I don't even know, I forget the drummer's name, but he told the drummer to play without drumsticks. That's what I was basically doing. I would hit the cymbals, but I'd push them. I wouldn't even hit the cymbals. I would mime, and I would
put your stick on the cymbal.
Push the cymbals.
Push the cymbal.
Yeah. It was terrible. It was one of the worst things I've ever had to do. And then after a while, he could tell I was uncomfortable, so he was like, "Do you have brushes? Mm-hmm. You can play lightly with the brushes. Mm-hmm. So play light with brushes." So I wasn't heard still, but I was like, "Man, I promise I can play these tunes, and you won't even tell that there's the drums will just feel a little louder. Yeah. They'll just behind you more."
Yeah. Yeah.
And my story continues with him.
Okay.
So he ended up wanting to go to Europe. Uh-huh. He's huge in Europe. Like he's
6'6".
That as well. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's great. That's hilarious. He's a superstar over there.
Yeah.
And so he was like, "Hey, I want to take you guys to Europe with us." Mm-hmm. And the Austin's Bridge guys couldn't go. But he's like, "Tucker, I still want you to go with me if you want to." Mm-hmm. He's like, "I'll give you this much money. It's 2 weeks. We're going to Denmark, the Netherlands, Sweden, and Norway."
Hello.
And then went to the Faroe Islands.
Yeah.
Which is just the raddest place ever. So I was like, man, 8 shows, 15 days, I'm in. Yeah. It's more of a sightseeing trip than anything.
No doubt.
So I went, and by that time I had played a couple shows with him, just himself, and he actually started letting me play drums.
Okay.
But
still to tracks? There were still drums coming?
Still drums in the tracks, yeah. But I was playing every single note just like the record. And he had a full band at this point. Mm-hmm. He had a guy on electric, guy on acoustic, a bass player. And actually Luke, my cousin Luke, who's Ricky and Sharon's son, I actually asked him to come and play bass in Europe. So me and Luke got to go to Europe together. And
Sweet. Does Luke go by Skaggs?
Yeah, Luke Skaggs.
Okay,
yeah.
gotcha.
And he actually just got engaged like 3 days ago, so that's cool. Congrats, Luke. But yeah, he's actually one of the best guitar players I've ever heard.
Wow.
Luke is.
That's awesome.
He's
Luke Skaggs.
I mean, he's got it, his mom and dad are some of the most talented people in this town, so. But
sweet.
Yeah, so he actually went out and played bass with us. We had a good time.
Yeah.
Playing over tracks with bass and drums in it.
And drums in it.
Oh, yeah.
Were the drums mic'd?
Drums were mic'd. So what was happening was out front, you were getting an onslaught of, I've used onslaught 3 times already. I've said that a lot. You were getting it just full on. You were getting track drums and you were getting real drums. Mm-hmm. And I guess whatever Swedish guy was running front of house was having to mix them together. Mm-hmm. I'm sure it sounded interesting.
You made it very clear, like, look, I'm not looking for my family to give me work. I'm going to do it on my own. But how do you, within that, it's almost like an obstacle you have to overcome. That,
it is.
It's not just taken for granted that I have family in the business. Mm-hmm. But not only that, I have to prove myself. So there's stories of drummers and musicians that come to Nashville that don't know anybody, that are working, that are doing all this stuff. You now have the opposite problem. You knew all these people. Mm-hmm.
And they saw me, they all saw me grow up. And now I've worked with some of them.
Did you ever have an issue with, like, oh, I remember little Tucker, and no, he's not really playing, is he? Or do they have to overcome this kind of preconceived notion, or do you just come in and play and like, oh, he's ready?
Well, there's a little bit of both. There's some people that might not have seen me for a while and they think I'm a guitar player. Like, oh, that's right, Tucker, you play guitar, don't you? How's the guitar thing going? It's like, I play drums. It's like, I play drums. That's what I do. I'm the only drummer in my family.
Yeah.
So that's why they think that maybe I'll play guitar, because everybody else does.
Right. So what was there any strategy, or was there any particular one thing that you said, this is going to help me move my career forward?
My ability to talk to people and to not be... I absolutely love to network. I love it. It's so much fun. Yeah. And sometimes it's like the necessary networking thing. It's like, I don't want to go do this. But sometimes it's like I'm kind of a socialite. I love to do that. Yeah. I love hanging out with people.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a very important thing. And some of us struggle with that. Mm-hmm. But there's no denying that it is very important.
There's a balance, though. and Kevin Murphy talks a lot about this. If he and I are getting coffee, he'll notice this guy he's got to shut up, or he's going to get run out of town. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of that, and you see guys come to town, and like in the short time that I've been a pro guy, and it's really funny to call myself a professional drummer. It's really hilarious, actually.
No,
but
I don't think so.
In the short time, it's like I've already seen guys come and go.
Yeah.
In the 7 years that I've been a professional making money drummer. Mm-hmm. And it's like I've had to think to myself, like, what did that guy do? Why did he leave? Mm-hmm. Why did he get fired? What ran him out of town? Mm-hmm. And it's usually they don't know the fine line in between networking and gurming.
So how would you explain that to somebody?
Well, if you see a tour bus, don't go knock on the door and say, hey man, can I come and hang out? It's like, that's not going to happen, bro. Like, don't do that. Like, you've got to find the fine line of hanging out and talking and don't go up to somebody immediately and talk about drums. Like, get to know them on a personal level first. And say, how's the kids, how's the wife, and it's a little small talkish, but be relational.
Be
with
like
them.
The gateway.
Yeah,
I think that's how David Parks and I first met. We started talking, drooling over his new Red Sparkle
Absolutely.
kit. That was like the first conversation that we had, when we first...
Sometimes it's necessary to talk about drums first. And,
yeah.
And then you can, figure each other out and, become buddies that way. And, then you'll have the friends that see, your friends because they saw you play drums. Mm-hmm. And then that might be the only thing you can relate to or that you ever talk about drum-wise. You might not ever talk drums with them except for the time they saw you play.
Yeah. Has that led to more work? Have you seen the results of this?
The gig I'm on now,
yeah,
I'm on it because of my connections with people that I've made.
Can you tell that story? And
absolutely. You want me to actually? I'm only 2 gigs away now from where I'm at. You want me to just keep going? And how I?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm getting really close actually to where I am today.
Yeah,
so
back up. Let's back up.
I actually remember now what I was doing right when I got married. So I was actually guitar teching and drum teching a little bit for my uncle.
Okay.
I had a little lapse in work, and I was like, well, he asked me if I wanted to come out and guitar tech. I was like, yeah, I can come do that. And it was very light tech work. Wasn't like changing many strings or anything, but it was cleaning and bringing stuff out. But also, I was teching for Tom Rohde.
Yes.
Which is, I was actually on the bus with him when he died.
Oh, wow.
It was crazy.
What a sweetheart, man.
I know. He was a huge loss.
Tom Rohde, for a lot of people may not know, amazing percussionist, just a fixture in Nashville for many years. And when I first moved to town, Tom was one of those guys, like Tommy Wells as well.
Absolutely.
That would take the time to talk, would take the time to listen. And was a sweetheart, and what a great loss. And he was on a Christmas tour. It was
the Skaggs family Christmas tour. He did every single one up until he passed. They did a record for that, the Christmas record. And they did 2 of them. He's on both of them.
Okay.
Just percussing his ass off, if you will. Mm-hmm. Just playing so good. Yeah, and now basically it's Eric Darkin now.
Okay.
The percussionist. That's it was him. It was, if you need a percussionist in town, it was him, Eric Darkin, and there's Kenny Malone.
Okay.
That's basically the guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, he definitely poured into my life a lot. He took me under his wing, when I was out there with him, and he always asked about my life and how things were going, and
yeah.
He'd give me advice, and but I was teching for him, and I did probably 3 or 4 tours of that with them, and then after that I started a valet job, like probably most drummers in town, most musicians. I valeted for a while.
Okay,
and I have a cousin who married this guy named Ben Guidry. He's a bass player in town. Mm-hmm. And I got to know him through my cousin, and he started working for a guy named Josh Thompson.
Okay.
Started playing bass and band leading. And I would always, I knew the guys in that band a little bit, and I would follow them. And they were playing a CMA Fest kickoff thing down on Broadway. Like the day before CMA Fest started, 2013.
Okay.
And I was valeting, and I got off and walked down the road and saw them play.
Yeah.
And they played great, and I saw Ben. He went and played, and I didn't see him for about an hour. And I think we were watching like Jana Kramer or somebody else was playing, and I see Ben just cutting a path through the crowd. Just cutting a trail. And I was like, uh-oh, something happened.
Yeah.
He didn't have a good look on his face.
Yeah.
He very quickly puts his arm around me, and we start walking down Broadway.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, how fast can you learn 22 songs? I was like, what? He was like, yeah, they just fired the guy. They just fired the drummer. I was like, wait. And I had done what, actually, I forgot to say, I'd done one sub date with them.
Okay.
And it was Brian Dowd, who he couldn't make it. He was the drummer for Josh, and I filled in. And it was fun. We did like 7 songs and went home.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they must have liked it.
Yeah.
Because Ben approached me and was like, hey, man, we got a show in like 2 days. We're playing 90 minutes. It's 22 songs.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I know 8 of them already.
Sure.
So I went home and learned and just crammed.
Mm-hmm.
And Ben called me and said, hey, man, they're willing to make this your audition if you want to do it. It was a 4-day run after the CMA Fest. I was like, man, I'd love to.
That's a nice way to audition, too.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
It was fantastic.
You've got time to prove yourself.
Yep.
Settle in.
The first show was co-headlining with Thomas Rhett at this little club in, I think, New Jersey or something. And so I had plenty of time to cram and listen. And I shared a kit with Chris Kimmer, who plays with Thomas still, who you need to interview him because he's awesome.
Okay.
And he's Canadian. And Chris had played with Josh for like a year.
Okay.
And so he was giving me, some tips and cues and kind of.
Was the 4-day run with Thomas Rhett?
It was just the first show.
First show.
My very first show with
Okay.
Thomas Rhett, yeah.
Okay.
And so I get up and we played first and it went great. Mm-hmm. I might, missed maybe a couple things or whatever, but and then the next night we did another show and Josh hired me on the spot.
Nice.
Like on stage.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, he was like, hey, man, turned around in the tall bag. He's like, hey, man, sounds great. Love to have you out here. And then he turned around onto the his main mic and was like, we'd like to welcome our new drummer. We just hired him just a minute ago. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And then he made me do a drum solo. So that was really great. And then he made me do a drum solo almost every night because he knew that I hated doing them. And I'm getting better at them now, I guess. But
I would have been in big trouble. Man.
Oh man, it was my drum solo was terrible. And he liked to do shots on stage, so he handed me one, and I'm sure I had not eaten or something, and I was feeling it pretty good. So it was hilarious. But
that's part of the audition, man.
Gosh,
the hang,
man, and that led to 2 years with Josh.
Awesome.
Yep.
Awesome.
And I left Josh January of this year.
Okay. So. And where did you go from there? Or what was there a reason you left him? Did you have...
Yeah. My cousin Ben, who got me the gig, he left about 3 months prior to me leaving, and he joined Tracy Lawrence's band.
Oh, cool.
So he's still playing with Tracy right now. And things started changing with management, and Josh's management was notoriously not good. Like, there just needed to be, I felt like I owed it to them and I owed it to myself, and I just needed to get out of there. Like, I didn't do anything wrong or whatever, but they actually tried, were going to try and fire me or get rid of me, go a different direction, if you will. And we've all heard that 1,000 times.
Thinly veiled.
And I was like, listen, man. I was like, you can't just fire band members just because something doesn't feel good. You don't know what it is, but something's not right. So you can't just go and fire the band members like that. Just, without giving them a chance. It's like I wasn't like bringing hard drugs up on the bus or, nothing like that. It was just something didn't feel right. Yeah. So they went to the newest guy. And I fought for it, and they ended up keeping me.
But then you have to kind of... Then you're like, wait a minute, they wanted to fire me.
A year to the day late, the next year I left.
So it's almost like someone wanting to break up with you, and you talk them out of it, and then you're in this relationship relationship with this person that, like, wait a minute, they wanted to break up with me. So for that year, was it?
It was great. He was pushing a new record.
Okay.
Pushing a new single. It was a great song, and it should have done something. But his record label, which is now defunct, it was Show Dog Universal. Mm-hmm. It was the worst record label in the whole world. Sorry, everybody, if you're listening and you worked for them, but they were terrible.
Yeah,
they were. There were some radio people that really loved the song and tried, but then there were some people that didn't care, and so it didn't do anything. And his shows went down, and his he was going through some stuff on his own. Maybe a divorce or something, and it didn't feel good anymore.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'm gonna go. Mm-hmm. I'm not gonna. I didn't like who I was.
Yeah.
Personally, I didn't.
I understand.
I was like, I want to continue to try to improve musically and as a human, and I don't feel like I can do that playing here anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and step down.
Yeah.
And
did you have something waiting for you? Okay, but
absolutely not.
You didn't, but there was something about the situation.
Yeah.
That you're like, despite the fact I don't have something waiting for me, that's not, there's more reasons to leave.
I guess I did have something waiting for me, and it was my wife and my new child.
Yes.
And I think last year with Josh, I did 148 shows. Mm-hmm. And that's enough. Mm-hmm. There's people out here doing 200 shows still, but knocking on 150, that's a lot. You're gone all the time. And I was like, I left on day 3 of my kid's life to go do a 4-day run. Yeah. And the day we came home from the hospital with him, I had a show in Nashville that day during CMA week. Like, wow. I needed to come home and spend some time with them and with him and bond and get to know him.
Yes.
And now we're very bonded now.
And I don't know if we were recording when you told me. How old is he now?
Oh, he's 17 months. So he's like almost a year and a half old.
Yeah. I've been there, man.
It's the greatest. Being a dad is the coolest thing ever, but being gone from him is not very cool.
No.
Getting to play drums for a living is awesome, and that whole thing is great. That's the end goal, but honestly, I try and put being a dad first. I was doing weddings and stuff, and I think actually one day, this has been 3 months ago now, one day I was about to go to a wedding and play, packing my drums up, and as you do, and I got a phone call, just random. Yeah. Didn't know the number, so I just answered it, and it was Canaan Smith's tour manager. Yeah. And I was like, hey, man, cool. How did you get my number? He's like, well, I got your number from a guy named Jeremy Little, who plays bass he's the band leader for Maddie and Tay. Okay. He's like, and we also got a recommendation from a guy named Keo Stroud. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I was like, oh, Keo, throw me a bone. So, I was like, cool, man. What's going on? He was like, well, we're drummerless right now, so we got to, we want to audition you. Mm-hmm. We got, 4 or 5 guys we're going to audition, and is that, do you want to do that? I was like, absolutely. Mm-hmm. He's like, we're on the Dierks Bentley tour right now. Sweet. And doing this and that. We got a bunch of stuff lined up. His single just went number 1 about 3 weeks ago at the time it did. Mm-hmm. And I was like, absolutely, count me in, I'll be there. Yeah. And I had like 2 months of pretty solid wedding work lined up. Yeah. And I was like, well, you got to do what you got to do. Yeah. So I took it, and it's a really interesting story how I got hired. I was very prepared. Mm-hmm. I show up, and I knew most of the guys on the audition. But they sent me an hour block of time to go audition. And I was like, cool. I guess it's a long audition. Then they sent me the music, and they sent me an hour-long set. I was like, cool. Gonna audition on an hour of music.
Right. That's unusual.
I'll just do it.
Yeah.
Just learn it. And I knew it without chart. I didn't chart it. I listened, played, I'd listen, I'd play, and then I just started playing. And I did it so much, I just learned the stuff. Mm-hmm. I can chart. I do chart a lot, but I just decided to not chart this time.
Sure.
And so the audition comes up, and I go and do it. I get there, and it's the tracks and everything. And they're like, all right, cool, we're going to play these songs. And we play about the fifth song, and I'm looking at my clock. You know, we got like 30 minutes left in this audition block. And I'm like, all right, man, cool. That's I think that's all the tunes. And I was like, hey, are we going to play the other ones? Mm-hmm. And they were like, wait, what other ones? We just sent you 5. I was like, no, you sent me an hour. Yeah. And they were like, wait, we sent you an hour? I was like, yeah, I know your hour set. Mm-hmm. Like the back of my hand. Mm-hmm. They were like, really? Okay. Which ones? And I told them which ones I knew. And they were like, we have an hour set in 2 nights. Yeah. And, you know, whoever gets this thing. Oh, yeah, the funny thing about the audition was they had 3 days home. Yeah. Whoever got it, I auditioned at 7 p.m. and whoever got it had to leave the next day at 2 p.m. Get on a bus for 5 days.
Oh, my gosh.
Had to leave the next day. Yeah. And so
they might have been given the 5 songs.
Everybody but me got 5 songs. I got an hour. Yeah. By accident. Yeah. And so they called me that night and said, hey, bro, we'd like to bring you out, you know, see how it meshes and see how it works. And I think right after the first show, Canaan was like, we'd love to have you out, man. Awesome. So here we are 2.5 months, 3 months later. Nice. And yeah, so I've been playing with Canaan. Finished out the Dierks Bentley tour. We start this Friday, start his first headlining tour of clubs.
Wow. That's awesome.
I'll leave this Friday. Actually, you know, speaking of Sean Fuller, who I guess you had a few
weeks ago.
Mm-hmm. I'm actually going on the Florida Georgia Line cruise this weekend, which will be hilarious.
Right, you mentioned that.
It'll be hilarious. There's going to be so many people on that cruise that I know. Yeah. But I'll get to hang out with Sean, so that'll be fun. He's a blast. Yeah. But Canaan is really good friends with those guys, and then I guess next year in January we start a arena tour direct supporting for Brantley Gilbert. Okay. So that'll be again interesting. I don't know any of those guys, and
okay. Yeah.
They wear a lot of chains, and I don't wear any chains, but they wear a lot. They like wallet chains, I think, and they yeah. I need to get me a wallet chain, I guess.
Or not.
I'm
No.
going to stick with not.
Yeah. No.
So yeah, Canaan's, to say the least, he's very busy. We did the Today Show.
Awesome.
About a month and a half ago.
It sounds like a happy accident.
Yeah.
That you did not let get by you. You came in prepared, no charts. So that was proven. Go out on the first run. They might have said, well, we got a couple drummers that would work, but hey, geez, he knows Tucker knows the whole thing. And then after the first show, they're like, great.
I mean, they told me that I did play better than anybody else.
Oh, great.
So that worked out too.
Yeah, great.
But, Canaan he wanted a rock drummer. Yeah. And now I can fill that position if need be. Yeah. That's kind of what I do mainly anyways. I mean, I can go and cop Eddie Bayer's licks all day. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I want to be Greg Morrow, but I do.
all want to be Greg Morrow.
But I did a tour with Josh, with Thompson. It was us, Randy Hauser, and Justin Moore. That's why I know Kevin Murphy so well. Uh-huh. He and I basically were on the road for 6 months together. Yeah. And he took me under his wing. He still thinks I'm a punk kid, but he took me under his wing, and I got to watch him play rock drums every night. Mm-hmm. And everybody knows that he's like the quintessential rock drummer in town. He is. Yeah. And getting to watch him every night just he and I are huge Bonham freaks too. We just, I think on that tour I had a Green Sparkle 26-inch bass drum. I had a 13-16 Green Sparkle Ludwig kit.
Nice.
On that tour. Yeah. So I was totally nerding on Bonham, and he, So yeah, Canaan wanted a rock drummer, and I kind of, it worked out. Yeah.
And to go back, we were talking about networking, and you were saying I've got a story that leads to that, and the call that you got for the audition was recommended by a couple different people, and one of them was Keo.
Yeah.
And when I think of people that have this ability to network socially, Keo has always been there. He's always been that guy.
He gets around.
Yeah, sure he does, and he does it in such a way that you're like, man, that guy's he's always out. He's a great hang, and it's not this Gurming thing. It's this networking thing. There's this. If you're going to hang and talk with them, it's more of an honest thing than this, hey, have you heard of any auditions? Hey, it's not that. It's just normal life things.
Well, Keo doesn't really care what people think about him, I don't think. And I love that. Because I used to struggle a lot with that, what people thought about me. And it was crippling self-doubt.
Yeah.
Like I think most musicians deal with, especially drummers, because we're drummers and people make fun of us all the time. Sure. But, no, seriously though, Keo, you can talk to Keo and it's like, what'd you do yesterday, buddy? And he's like, I just hung with Greg Morrow, and then I had lunch with McHugh. And it's just Keo. He's friends with everybody.
Yeah,
and he doesn't really. He's not hanging with guys to use them. He's just friendly and wants to hang out. Well, we can segue into Alex Van Halen because I'm also a diehard Alex Van Halen fan. So I am.
Well, why would you say that, Tucker?
I mean,
what is it about Alex Van Halen? Why would you change the subject? Why are you talking about?
Well, I mean, I didn't mean to wear this today. I really didn't. But
that's awesome.
But
I'm glad you did.
Yeah, my dad got me into Van Halen.
Yeah,
and absolutely, my dad's a huge Van Halen fan. And if you saw my dad, you wouldn't think my dad's kind of a good old boy from Tennessee. He likes bass fishes and works at the Nissan plant, but then he likes Van Halen, likes Rush. He loves rock music. So my dad was like, "You got to listen to Van Halen. You got to." He's like, "No Van Hagar," and I live by that. After 1984, there isn't anything.
Would you get in trouble if you listen to Van Halen? Would that be grounds for
kind of sacrilege almost? No, but I mean, there's some cool stuff with Sammy Hagar on it. Like 5150 is pretty awesome, but no, my dad, he only let me really listen to the Diamond Dave stuff. And my dad's name is David, and so we call my dad Diamond Dave.
Okay.
My wife, she talks to my dad on the phone. She calls him Diamond Dave. It's pretty awesome.
How old were you when you first started that?
I was probably like 6 or 7 when I first heard Van Halen.
Yeah.
And it was very, from the first time I listened to them, it was very like, ooh, this is different. Like these guys know how to have fun.
Right.
It just sounded like the perfect mixture of like, it was heavy and it was kind of dark at times, but they were having, at least they seemed like they were having fun.
Yes.
I mean, we all know that Alex and Eddie didn't really like David very much after a while, but they put on a good show, and my mom likes them too. My mom saw them in 1981 at Municipal Auditorium in Nashville. She said that was the coolest thing I ever saw. She's like Dave, he'd swing back and forth and he'd jump off everything, and Eddie'd try and kick his amps over, and just a different time.
Well, when you heard it, you were already playing drums, even at 6.
Yeah.
So, did you automatically gravitate to the drums, or?
I was drumming, and I was already into to Rush and stuff like that. But I'd say the two bands that really were influential on me were Rush and Van Halen. Like as far as rock and Zeppelin obviously, but when I was real young, it was mainly the loud and fast bands. So the Van Halen and Rush. Zeppelin has surpassed those.
Yeah.
I'm older, more mature, and I understand Zeppelin way more now. But yeah, Van Halen, it was like, whoa. Like, the opening of Mean Street, like, that's the coolest thing ever. That might be the coolest guitar riff ever. I just like, my dad was like, you got to hear this song, man. You got to hear this song. It's the coolest thing ever.
Were you playing along with the records?
I played along to 84 a lot because one Christmas, I wanted music for Christmas. I wanted CDs of good rock music that my parents listened to. I told them that, and I got 1984. I think I got either Diver Down or maybe Women and Children First on CD. I got a bunch of other stuff too, but man, 1984, that record, I probably put a groove in the disc. The laser probably burnt a groove in it, but
right.
And now I have most of the Van Halen records on vinyl now, so
okay,
I was listening to that.
It's funny when you become a fan, you end up buying the same record or the same songs 2, 3, 4 times. It's like, oh, I had this on CD when I was a kid. Now I'm going to order it again on iTunes. Ooh, now they have a vinyl reissue. So I've bought some records like 3 or 4 times. So that's probably...
I'm with you.
Yeah. So coming up in December 14th,
right,
there's the Nashville Drummer Jam, and it's a tribute to Alex Van Halen. A couple players are mentioning what song they're going to play, and some are keeping it a secret.
No one's looking forward, there's no drum roll, please, for what song I'm playing. No one's coming to that thing just to see me play. They're like, oh man, big surprise for, what Tucker's playing. I'm playing Everybody Wants Some.
Okay.
So jungle drums, crazy guitars, and Dave sounding like Tarzan. So it's awesome. It's got everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's got, kind of a... It's almost like if the Beatles played Van Halen, or vice versa. If Van Halen played the Beatles, the groove that he plays.
Yeah.
So it's such a bizarre song, but it's so cool. So.
And the first time I heard that song was in a movie with John Cusack, and if you can tell me what movie that is.
I'm 25 years old, so I probably.
That's why
I probably won't be able to tell you. Let's see. With John Cusack in it. This is embarrassing, actually.
You know what? I don't think I'm going to answer. I'm going to see if anybody hears
I feel like I'm an old soul.
To comment, because we need more comments on Twitter and YouTube and all that stuff. So if you know the answer, you'll get 2 gold coins from the podcast Working Drummer. No, we'll figure out a way
That's hilarious.
to award you. Name that movie.
Name that movie.
That Everybody Wants Some was recorded. So... You're playing that December 14th at the Exit Inn, Nashville Drummers Jam. Tell me about your experience with the Nashville Drummers Jam.
Well, when I was playing with Josh Thompson, I was approached, I guess I was approached first by David Parks.
Okay.
I think he was like, hey man, we got an extra spot, and a lot of guys have been throwing your name our way to add to our list.
Yeah.
I was like, God, really? Seriously? Who am I? But... it was the Bonham one, and
cool.
Everybody knows how much of a John Bonham fan I am. So, they were like, "Yeah." David was like, "Yeah, send me your top 3 Bonham songs," and he told me which one I was playing. Yeah. I played a whole lot of Love, so that was awesome. But after that, it went great, and I did the next one. I guess that was the Neil Peart one.
Which I saw, and you killed it, man.
Oh, thanks, man. Awesome. That was so much fun. And I think I picked the penultimate hardest song after Billy Freeman. He played
La Villa Strangiato.
Yeah, he played La Villa. So
he played Natural Science.
Yeah, that was hilarious. And then the next one was the Stuart Copeland.
Yeah.
And I didn't do it because I wasn't working.
Okay.
And I wasn't gonna like beg for a spot with guys that have jobs should be doing that. So it should be guys that are working kind of, I was just I didn't even have a drum gig anywhere for the Stuart Copeland one, even though my son's middle name is Copeland after Stuart Copeland. But
okay, my son's middle name is Copeland.
Are you serious?
Not after Stuart, though.
Nah, that's so cool.
Family name.
That's awesome.
Different
That's
spelling.
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, but I was like, hey, you know what? Even though my son's middle name is Copeland, I'll sit out. I don't have to do this one. Or,
Yeah.
you know, it gave. I think they were trying to free up space for guys like Chris McHugh to do it, which he did. He did so great. It was so cool to watch him do that. So, but yeah, then they approached me about the Van Halen one. They wanted to know if I wanted to do it, and I was like, absolutely. It's funny you asked.
Yeah, yeah. It's been a good thing. It's
Yeah.
been a good thing, and it's for charity.
Absolutely.
And it's a chance for the music community and the drum community to get together. And it's been growing more and more. And it's been really cool to see it grow beyond, I think, what David Parks initially thought it would be. So with him and Tom Hurst and Chris Nix growing this thing, the podcast is honored to be a part of it. And hey, Tucker, thanks, man.
Dude,
I appreciate
absolutely.
it. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
This has been a lot of fun.
So there you have it, everybody. There is Tucker Wilson. I love the stories of him working with tracks, full-on tracks with drums and bass. Had to be quite an experience. My thanks again to Mike Jackson for his help. We did some extra work on the videos, the short interviews that have to do with the Nashville Drummers Jam. So thanks, Mike, for that. Appreciate that. Once again, December 14th at the Exit Inn is the Nashville Drummers Jam, the tribute to Alex Van Halen. The recipient of the charity that Nashville Drummer Jam is going with this year is Open Table Nashville. I'm happy to announce that this is an organization local that my wife is a part of, and you can go to opentable.org, opentable.org to find out more about this. They help out those who are experiencing poverty and helping them get back on their feet, find housing. It's a great organization, relatively young organization, but they won Charity of the Year 2015 by the Nashville Scene, so it's very cool. So once again, thanks everyone for listening and your comments and your support, and hope to see you around. Bye-bye.